Welcome to Voicing Asian American Actors, a podcast with Asian American actors chatting about the actor's life in and out of the spotlight. Here's your host, Ben Gonio.
Hello, and welcome to Voicing Asian American Actors podcast with Ben Gonio. I'm your host, Ben Gonio, and this is episode 9. Really excited to have our guest on today. Francis Jue, ladies and gentlemen, is a performer that I've had the pleasure of observing from a distance. His roles have been wide ranging, and he's put out some very interesting and grounded performances over the years. I can tell because I've seen clips of it, I've read reviews, and he's just one of those in the AAPI community, one of those celebrated actors that you see, and I'm just really honored to have him on. A little bit about him. Um, so, in the season before the pandemic, Francis received a Lucille Lortel Award for Cambodian Rock Band, an Outer Critics Circle Award for Soft Power, and a Bay Area Critics Circle Award for the Language Archive. He's appeared on Broadway in Pacific Overtures, Thoroughly Modern Millie, and M. Butterfly. Recent off-Broadway credits include Good Enemy, Twilight Los Angeles, 1992, and Wild Goose Dreams, of which he received an Obie Award. Recent regional credits include Today Is My Birthday, King of the Yees, of which he received a Bay Area Critics Circle Award, and Tiger Style. TV film credits include Madam Secretary, Hightown, Law and Order SUV, Joyful Noise, White Noise, and Our Son. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Francis Jue.
Hey, Ben.
Hi,
So happy
Francis.
to be here.
Thanks for being on. I must say that it's so funny because when I saw that you had done not Cambodian Rock Band but King of the Yees, I was like, oh wow, this is really doing well. I was actually part of an early reading of it here in Seattle with Lauren, and that's a fantastic play. Funny play, poignant and very touching. Um, let's start with that. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience with that particular show, and tell us a little bit more about King of the Yees?
Sure. Out of the blue, I
Mm-hmm.
got a call um, asking me if I would go to this great institution here in New York called the Playwrights Realm.
Mm-hmm.
And they help develop new playwrights, new plays.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd gone there to do a reading or two in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And I show up, and there's Lauren and her very good friend and collaborator, Josh, and a group of other actors. And she just had like pages. It wasn't even a play yet. It was just scenes, bits of scenes, and
Mm-hmm.
and she just threw them at us and said, "Let's just read. Let's just see what happens."
Wow.
And it was one of the most exciting table reads I've ever had,
Wow.
because this character based on her father is,
Mm-hmm.
as you know, a wild guy,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
very unlike me, actually. He's
Mm-hmm.
very much an extrovert, this
Mm-hmm.
character. And this exploration of um, what it means to have grown up in Chinatown
Uh-huh.
and what it means to leave Chinatown,
Mm.
what it means to be the next generation of Asian American who maybe doesn't feel like Chinatown is home.
Mm.
What's it like if Chinatown does feel like home and your kids don't relate to home the same way that you do anymore?
Wow.
So I found a lot to relate to in this play, but of course it was just sketches of stuff. And
Wow.
if you know, I mean, if you've had an experience of Lauren, you've seen how
Yes.
quickly she works. I
Oh
mean,
my
we just
goodness.
read, asked questions, and then suddenly we come in the next night, and she's got like a whole new play.
Yeah.
And you read that, and then she takes notes, and you come back the next night, and again she comes in again with a whole
Yeah.
new play,
Yeah. I just
and
she
it's
was
always better.
Yes, yes, I totally agree with you. And my brief experience, I've worked on two really early pieces of hers, and
Mm,
bubbly, just energetic, yes, and just she reminds me of just this kind of like messy paint, genius of a painter who just comes in,
hmm
and she is really fabulous, and I'm so, and we'll get to talk to a little bit about Cambodian Rock Band a little bit here, but so you worked with her on a number of pieces then. King of the Yees, Cambodian Rock Band, and were there other pieces that you worked on with Lauren?
There were a couple of other plays in
Hmm.
very early stages of development that I helped out doing readings of. There was the basketball play. God, why am I blanking on its name now?
Oh yeah, I think yeah, and there's
Um,
a coach and a player, right? It was a two-person
yeah,
thing. Yeah, that was at
yeah.
the yeah. That was
And there was another one where Joe No, brilliant actor
yeah.
that you should also talk to.
Yeah, no,
If you
we went to school together. He graduated about well after I graduated from the UW. So, yeah.
he'd be I would love to hear that interview.
Yeah.
Um, but he and I were in Colorado, and we read a new script of hers where we were both supposed to be these young Russians who wanted to be members of the KGB, only the Soviet Union had already fallen. And
Wow.
so it was incredibly funny. And a couple of other things, just sketches of things. She's really
Great.
great at collaborating, at writing down everything anybody
Sure.
has to say after
Sure.
a read, any questions. She thinks about it, and she comes back in with her own response to
Right.
all of that.
Wow. Wow.
She may not have responded directly to something that you asked or that you suggested,
Mhm.
but she always makes you feel like you're collaborating.
Wow.
Um, and I give her a lot of credit. She's so much younger than I am, but I've learned a lot about how to um, contribute
Yeah.
when a
Yeah.
play is in development.
Wow. Fantastic. Fantastic. I really hope to to work with her again whenever she's back up here. More about you, Francis. I have our first question for our listeners and viewers. This one I love to ask because there's always something interesting that that I hear from our guests. And the question for you is to find out a little bit more about you is: was there a particular moment or an event that you would consider the catalyst for you performing, going into performing arts, and saying to yourself, this is my truth, this is my path, I've got to do this? Can you share with us a little bit about that?
Wow, and that's a great question. And I think that almost anybody in this business has at that moment,
Hmm.
and probably lots of moments like that
Yeah. Yeah.
along the way.
Hmm.
But I can actually place exactly what that moment it was for me. I was 12
Hmm.
years old, and my brother, one of my brothers, older brothers, had been cast as the prince in a high school production of The King and I.
Uh-huh.
And our family wasn't like a live theater going family, but
Hmm.
Jeffrey was in this play, and so we all went to go see it.
Hmm.
And we had seen The King and I on television, and we all loved it,
Hmm.
watching it when I was growing up. Like you watch Oklahoma every year, like we watch the Ten Commandments every year on
Hmm.
TV.
Hmm.
King and I was always a little special because it was about Asian people, and
Sure.
um, we weren't Thai, but just seeing anybody who was Asian in their own culture, with their own sense of authority, with their own dignity,
Hmm.
um, always was something special. So
Hmm.
watching it on TV was special. But then I saw it live. And
Hmm.
even though my brother was one of only two Asian people in the play.
Yes.
It was a high school production.
Mhm.
Even though it was, a small theater, 100 seats, the orchestra was played by fellow students, high school students.
Mhm.
Um, it was truly one of the most magical, transformative experiences I still to this day have ever had.
Mhm.
As far as I
Mhm.
was concerned, every single one of those characters was Siamese,
Mm.
and it was so beautiful. Mrs. Anna actually produced real tears. She was actually crying while
Mhm.
reading the letter from the king towards the end of the play. And
Mm.
I was a kid who was underweight, covered in pimples, really shy, really
Mhm.
insecure,
Mm.
couldn't talk to people, couldn't even talk to people in my own family. You know,
Mm.
I was that shy and insecure. And I knew when I saw that production that that was a world that I could live in, not in the world of the king and I, but in the
Mm.
world of the theater,
Mm.
because here was a structure within which people could express themselves, could actually speak about their feelings, could
Mm.
experience something together. And from the moment that I saw that show, I had a really spiritual connection to the
Mm.
whole idea of acting. That
Mm.
there is a real sacred bond between an
Wow.
actor and a script, an actor and an audience, an
Mm.
actor and the fellow company members, whether they're actors you share a scene with, the director, the designers, the people who work on props, the people who hang the lights. There's
Mhm.
this bond that you have to have, this trust that
Mm.
you have to have, sometimes very, very quickly, um, that I find really hopeful.
Yeah.
As much as as screwed up as the world is, at least when we're all alone together in a dark space, we can
Mhm.
create a story together,
Mhm.
um, and have a common experience. We might
Mhm.
not all interpret the story the same way, we might not all feel the same thing, but we can have that experience together. And that's something that I think is rare
Mhm.
and um, that makes live theater incredibly unique.
Mhm.
And it's how we it's one of the art forms that I think encourages empathy and
Mhm.
understanding.
Mhm.
And it's a great rehearsal for life. And
Yeah.
so it was right there seeing my brother play the prince.
Wow.
And yeah,
Mm.
I
Wow.
I just I've always from that moment taken the whole idea of theater very seriously. It's a craft and you have to work at it. It's not, my parents used to say, you're just showing off. You just have they're having fun. And then one day they came backstage after they'd seen me
Mm.
um, play Butterfly in M Butterfly.
Mhm.
And my dad, who was an engineer for the Navy all of his
Mhm.
life, looked around at all the crew members and the lines where things were hung in the fly space, and the crew members like packing stuff up in laundry baskets for the costumes and stuff like that. And he looked around and he
Mhm.
said, "This looks like work." And I said, "Yeah, yeah, this is work."
Well, and it's a wonderful story, Francis, because I mean, I'm also hearing in there that yes, yeah, you're just playing around, you're showing off. You must have been having a ball, a great time, because that's what it is, right? It's a play. The joy must have been there. I'm sure your parents picked it up, and it was infectious. And there's something about theater and that shared energy that
Mm,
really starts from the narrative that somehow transcends the narrative into something very interesting and palpable that folks leave with. I'm just so glad. And Butterfly is a fabulous play, obviously. So it's wow, what a great experience. And Butterfly. So here's another segue then. Based on what you thank you for sharing that um, personal thing. Now, based on your current work and your past experiences, where do you think AAPI representation in theater, film, and television is now? What are your thoughts on the current state of it?
Well, I think that a lot of people will say that it's better than it ever has been.
Hmm.
Um, and that is true. There are more things shooting right now that include Asian people. And there are efforts to produce um, Asian playwrights and screenwriters more than there ever have been in my memory.
Mm.
Um, but you know what? It's not good enough.
Mm.
There's still a glass ceiling. When a
Mm.
lot of people talk about inclusion and
Mhm.
diversity, they're not actually talking about us.
Mm.
It's much more of it's much more of a binary conversation that they're having.
Mm.
And when I talk about inclusion,
Mhm.
I'm talking about everybody, because that's the definition of inclusion.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's not actually inclusive.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that we still have a long way to go. Commercial theater, in spite of the fact that they're in, this last season there was K-pop, and now this season there's
Mhm.
Here Lies Love.
Mhm.
There's still like a handful of Asian stories that have ever been told in
Mhm.
the commercial theater.
Mhm.
There's still this buzz that goes on behind the scenes whenever there is an audition for a production of The King and I, or Miss Saigon, or Flower Drum Song, because those are the only shows
Right.
that we actually feel like we at least are reserved for us. And even then, it's not always just reserved for us.
Mhm.
Um, but in the commercial theater, it's like, where are our stories? Where have we been seen as human beings?
Mhm.
Um, Such that audiences still go to see a story that is placed in Asia, or an Asian American family, or um, just anything that has to do with us. And suddenly it's more like a cultural experience for them to go
Mhm.
to that show. It isn't like
Mhm.
just going to a play
Right.
where they get
Right.
to relate, where they follow these characters.
Mhm.
First, they're looking at us as representatives of
Mhm.
some foreign culture.
Mm.
Even if it's an Asian American family that talks like you or me,
Mm.
it's foreign.
Wow.
And so the first thing that we have to do oftentimes is prove that we're human beings,
Mhm.
and that I'm an actor playing a character.
Mm.
The person that I'm playing isn't just me.
Right.
So I'm not just a representative of some culture that you have a visa to get a glimpse of for a short vacation.
Right.
But we're just doing a play like any
Right.
other play. I've often said I don't go to the Crucible and assume that all white people are crazy witch hunters. I I
Mm.
think of that as a story that I relate to
Mhm.
various characters in various different ways, and I
Right.
evaluate the story and what Arthur Miller meant. And I think that we often don't get that same lens.
Right.
And it's because we've been seen so rarely.
Mhm.
And because the stories that have been presented about us in commercial theater, in
Mhm.
mainstream movies, were written not necessarily by Asian people.
Yes.
So we're always sort of translating. I love The King and I. I think it's a
Yeah.
great show. I think it's a great script. I love Thoroughly Modern Millie. I love
Mhm.
um, Miss Saigon in
Mhm.
so many different ways. But
Mhm.
whenever I've done any of those things, I've had to kind of translate how we were depicted to bring just the character's humanity. and to reinforce that they are not just a symbol of backward culture or of an evil force that wants to bring America down, or you know, that these people within those stories have their own sense of dignity,
Yes.
even if it's misguided, and have their own integrity, their own perspective on the world.
Yeah.
And so I've tried really hard in shows like that and other shows to reinforce that Asian people are people too.
Right.
I once was at a talkback, and a lovely audience member who had seen me in lots of different shows said, "You know, when I see you, I don't see an Asian person. I see just a person." And I said, "You know, that's great. One day, I hope you'll also see me as an Asian person who is a human being."
Right.
I know that there are lots of people who are out there, AAPI actors, young actors who want to play heroes because we haven't seen enough of them, who never want to play someone with an accent, never want to play an immigrant, never want to play a servant or a delivery person. And I love playing all of those people.
Sure.
In addition to other kinds of characters, because they're humans too, because they're members of my family.
Right.
And they deserve their own stories too. So if a script demands that I have an accent, I also demand that story be allowed to have at least enough real estate within the play to reflect on a human experience. And if it doesn't, then it's just not for me.
Right, right. And isn't that the actor's job anyway, is to mine that humanity? And a lot of what you're saying is really resonating for me.
Mm.
And I've never heard it articulated as well as you have. And there's
Thanks.
a lot of things that it triggers in me, and that, we could do podcasts and podcasts and podcasts about that. But the thing that, from what you just said, the thing that I'm gleaning from this is that there's space for all of it. But I have had the same kind of experience as you, as a performer, as an observer of a performance, when it comes to Asian American narratives or immigrant narratives, where I feel a little bit removed. I celebrate it, I support it, but then there's this part of me that's going, there's some total issues happening here, because I feel like I'm watching a museum piece of a representation or symbolic aspect of a particular culture, and it is deemed a commercial risk unless we have a rock star attached to this musical to draw them in. We're still, that I want to get to a place where, like, what you're saying to me is, I'm translating as a human story. Yes, there are cultural aspects to it, but the humanity rises above even all of that, where you see a colorful human portrayal, and an actor who happens to just be Asian. We're not beating anybody over the head with it. And so thank you for that. I need to hear that, because I struggle. I continue to have an inner dialogue with myself, and I try to negotiate my place in all of this, and where, and even since doing this podcast, I've had a lot of varying opinions about the current state, and there's space for all of that, and it's a wonderful. But I hope for that too, where we can just see a performance where, we just get everything. We get the cultural aspect, but then there's something even more transcendent about it, and I hope, and that's I'm in total agreement with you when you say there's a lot of room for improvement.
There's a lot
yeah,
of room for improvement. I mean, both aesthetically and artistically, but also just business wise.
Yeah.
There are bankable stars.
Mhm.
who and people I think that are worthy of being bankable stars who aren't given that opportunity.
Mm.
You know, I think that I can think of so many brilliant AAPI performers who do brilliant work, and we have not had the same opportunities as a lot of other people. And you know, I've said to playwrights like Lauren, like David Henry Hwang, that we haven't had our sort of raisin in the sun yet.
Mm.
A story about a family that it's an American story
Mhm.
that doesn't shy away from the fact that they're Asian,
Mhm.
but that becomes part of the culture,
Mm.
part of the understanding of our place in the culture, and that becomes just part of the mainstream narrative of what it means to be American. The
Mhm.
way that this singular play by Lorraine Hansberry
Mhm.
did for um, Black people, for Black actors within the business.
Mhm.
And, you know, I just don't see as many Asians being offered the opportunity to do
Sure.
what they are capable of.
Right. So this is perfect. Gosh, this is breezing right along here. So we
Hmm,
are at 7 minutes. So I'm gonna do a two-parter question for you.
cool.
All right. So um, what advice would you give to um, folks within the AAPI community wanting to pursue a path similar to yours, a path in performing arts? That's the first part of the question. And then the second part is, please tell us anything and everything about your upcoming. I don't know how is this. Will this be your second or third stint with Cambodian Rock Band? Because I wanted to
Hmm.
touch on that, and so if you can just give us a little tease about that.
Thank you for
Yeah.
fitting in Cambodian Rock Band, because I'm
Sure.
next week I'm going to DC
Great.
to rejoin the tour.
Great.
Um, I'm often asked when I am talking with young AAPI actors, um, I'm often asked how they can figure out what their type is
Mm-hmm.
and how to best present their type. And my response to that has always been, fuck that shit.
Mm.
We are not types. We are people.
Mm-hmm.
And to be an actor, you have to access so many different parts of yourself. How do you categorize them? How do you
Wow.
fit them into one basket?
Wow.
You know, you are we're all capable of so much. Now, I'm not one of those actors who thinks that I can play anything. I
Mm.
think I have certain talents, I have certain gifts, and certain liabilities, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are some things that I'm better at than others. But I've been lucky that I've been able to explore some of those assets that I have and some of those liabilities. I've been in enough things now where I know what it's like to fail. Um, but I also have been around long enough to know that I don't try to put myself in a box um, to fit into a mold in order to fit into somebody else's idea of what it would mean to succeed in this business. Your What makes you you, what makes you unique, what makes you interesting is your secret sauce. And it has everything to do with how flawed you are, how beautiful you are in other ways. Bob Fosse didn't have really great turnout. And so he created an entire dance form
Mm.
based on being turned in. And look what happened.
Mm-hmm.
We have this whole new body of work that expresses something that we didn't even know we needed to express. So if you're young and you want to be in this business, explore what it is that makes you, makes you interesting and weird, and perfect that.
Mm.
Um, and that's a great way of knowing why you're in this business. Some people want to be on TV, they want to be on a sitcom, they do everything they can to work towards that. If you know that about yourself, great. You know what you have to do. Me, I want to do all kinds of things. So I try lots of different things. I leave myself open to lots of different things. Other people think that they are Ophelia and that they want to play Ophelia and not Gertrude. So do that. But I'm somebody who just wants to see what I have in common with all of those different characters. Maybe not enough, but sometimes, even in a play like Cambodian Rock Band, you can find that you have a lot in common with someone who was a mass murdering war criminal, who was a leader during the reign of the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia. I never thought that I would have something in common with somebody like Doik, but he had a family, he had kids that he was protecting. He was a math teacher and very precise. He liked to be able to say he had added 2 + 2 and come out with 4. That was, and he was idealistic in his own way. When he first joined the Khmer Rouge, he hoped that they would help in a society that had been, ruled by an authoritarian for a very long time. And they replaced one authoritarian with another kind of authoritarian, just insane regime. But he didn't find that out until too late. So how do you survive in a situation like that? Do you say, okay, kill my children? Or do you say, you want me to kill that person who you say is a bad person, and if I do that, you will spare my children? Maybe I would do that. I don't know. I've never had that dilemma in my face in that way before. But if I were faced with that, I don't know what I'd be capable of doing in order to save my nieces and nephews. Yeah. And who among us can say that they know that they're better than that? And that's part of what I love about Cambodian Rock Band is you have these two people. One is a war criminal, one is not, and yet you find out what they have in common during the play.
Yeah.
And Lauren, at the end, although it's a very dark subject, says we can get through this if we keep the music alive.
Wow.
If we don't give up on this art, because we as artists have a way of leading people to the light.
Thank you for sharing that. Down to 30 seconds. We're going to get cut off here soon. Excuse me. So, any logistical information in terms of Cambodian Rock Band and you're going to DC? Can you tell us a little bit more?
Cambodian Rock Band will be at the Arena Stage in DC. Okay. It starts previews in the middle of July, and we play to the end of August. Hope to see you there.
Francis, let's be friends. If you're ever up in Seattle, my mom would love to cook you Filipino dinner. So keep my phone number, okay?
Absolutely.
An honor. Francis, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ben.
We'll be in touch. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you to our guest, and we hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. You can click the link in this episode's description to watch the video on YouTube. Be sure to tune in next time on Voicing Asian American Actors.